Yeah. What's her name?
All the way down.
What's
Emmy
her-
Lou.
Amy Lou?
Emmy Lou.
Emmy Lou.
All the way down. All the way
As
down.
in Emmy Lou Harris?
She is named after Emmy Lou Harris.
Awesome.
All
She's one of
right.
my favorites.
I got to know her a little bit.
Emmy Lou?
Yes. And that's why she got. Actually, a friend of mine was having dinner with her, and you know, she rescues dogs and all that. So he said, "Yeah, my friend has named her dog after you." And she said, "I want to see pictures," and she wasn't offended. I was glad. I was at had to meet somebody, and
At Buc-ee's?
no, it was the other day. And I had a bag of cash to exchange, and we were in an alleyway. I know this sounds bad. It was
Wow, the
totally
camera's
legal.
on for the record, so be careful what
Is
you
it
say.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, anyway.
To exchange.
So she was in the car, and this homeless kind of crazy drunk guy was wandering around, and I was just really glad she was there.
Oh, yeah. At Buc-ee's?
No, this
I
was
just made it Buc-ee's because that's around here and there.
in the corner of Nashville.
Okay, here we go. Gary's not here tonight, he has to be in Nashville, for a personal matter. And Dr. Stephen Bartell will start next month. He was appointed back in May by Loudon County to be on solid waste. So thank y'all for being here. The minutes that Gary sent out a while ago, has everyone had a chance to review those? Are there any changes to those minutes? Do you want to punt and approve those in July?
Well, there were some things that were not real clear. You know, just it says, oh, and like, for Mr. Jamerson, he said absent was commission members, but he wasn't a commission member at that point, was he? He had resigned.
And he may not know this, so why don't we just punt on these and we'll approve in July then?
Okay, let's see, here's a statement to go over some of the details within the next week, and that within, you know.
Yeah. Okay, we'll just, move those to July.
She's fine. Does she sit?
The auditor, the contract's being signed for the 2025 auditor we voted on.
What about public comment?
Oh, okay, go ahead, Pat Hunter.
I mean, I'm the
They're
only
not
person-
required, but go ahead.
I'm the only person here.
No, you're not. The Republic may have a public comment.
No, he doesn't count.
Please have one when she's done.
Two things, actually three things. Mr. Byers couldn't be here. He's ill. But he wanted to know the status of whatever's going to be done with regards to the mud on the road. Is there an update? Is there, you know, anything conclusive or final? That's what he wanted to know. I have two concerns. One is about the inspection report and the AOC and the NOV, the B1 violation, how that's going to be addressed. That seems to be an ongoing thing with the leachate. And then the other thing that I have a concern with is, I think it was the annual stakeholder price adjustment. I'd like to remind Republic that section 10.3, the tipping fees and other charges, it says the contractor shall assess per ton tipping fees to all users of the landfill during the term of this agreement so as to adequately perform the work. So it's not just the stakeholders, it is everyone. And we're supposed to get an annual list, and there was just the stakeholders. So they need to comply. In my opinion, they need to comply with that section 10.3.
So the annual list of rate increases for all customers?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's in section 10.3, tipping fees and other charges.
And we've gotten that in the past, so
Page
I'll ask
9
about
and
it.
10. The other thing is, and I think sometimes everybody forgets, there are other fees that are being assessed, and I think we need to know if they have changed or if they are still the same. And I'm talking about whether it's a mattress fee, a tarp fee, a hat fee. You know, they have a fee for just about everything, and I think that should be included in the annual update of the fees. That's it.
That was easy.
Well, I think the question would be, when is the last time there was a rate increase for?
Well, we've got one, maybe even last year. Can we get an updated increase for all customers that we get?
I submitted that letter by January 25th that showed the rates for everybody.
Well, there you go. Is it increasing for those other customers at this point in time?
Those
Like-
were all done 1/1.
Okay, there you go.
January 25th, so that would have been in the,
January packet?
or
Ish?
February.
I don't know if it was in the January packet, but I know it was, I can re-email it to you, Adam. if you
Okay,
want.
that'd be great. And I'll check.
But are you saying that it's changed for the stakeholders then?
It appears our stakeholders apparently changes at
7/1.
first of our year. And for all the other customers, they go by the January 1st time.
Well, according to this, it's supposed to be at the same time, everyone. I don't know what they do, but
Well, I know what they do. They increase
that's what
everybody
they
else's in
do, but
January,
it's
and they-
not according to this.
I'll
And
get
it
with
would
Miss-
be good to do this.
I'll get Miss Murphy on it. We'll talk, Miss Murphy and I'll have a great conversation about it.
And Ms. Hunter, you're reading from which of the three contracts?
I am reading
Original?
from the Second Amendment approved July 12th, 2022, which superseded 10.3 in the original.
Okay, second amended, thank
But
you.
is it 10.3 in both?
Yeah, because it says section 10.3 of the agreement is amended herein by deleting the entirety of this section and substituting in lieu thereof the following. So they took everything out and redid it this way,
Okay.
but it's shall everyone. And it's supposed to be at the same time. I don't know where he comes up with his stuff,
We'll get to the bottom of it just for you.
okay?
Starter, will you tell us about the minor change and the minor modification?
Yeah, it was a preference on TDEC. Lou requested that instead of using in excess of, I think, 1¼ inch hole or depression, he wanted us to say up to 1¼ inch. I guess the perception is that it could mean 3 feet with that verbiage as opposed to just 1.5. So that was just, it was a 2-word adjustment that he requested.
So, and I'd like this, I want a motion in a second, then we'll discuss it, then we're gonna vote to approve the change to minor mod.
I'll make a motion.
Second,
I'll say.
okay. Now let's discuss, go ahead.
I just wondered, is that the thing that Adam sent to us, is that wording in this, or does it need to be, or is it not?
It's in the one I added, yes.
Okay, so that's included. Okay.
Following changes are resubmitting that minor mod with those 2 or 3 word changes.
Yay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, all opposed? Let's have it. A slim majority here tonight.
Just barely.
There is a, Stoddard did some due diligence for us on engineering alternatives. Will you explain to the board what your 2-foot stainless steel perforated extension to the, will you go through that for us?
Sure, a little background on the permit application. It was a conceptual design based upon how it would reestablish the flow from module A through the gravity line. We had to do some investigation to see if what was allowed, or at least explained in the permit, was conceptually possible. We adjusted some of the kind of specs that would be approached here because 2 things really kind of stood out as: one, how do we reestablish flow with as much efficacy as possible, and one of which is, let's put a perforated line in the waste column to ensure leachate from 0 inches up into how far we can press in will be able to pass through. And then secondly, how do we centralize a line to ensure that it can maintain its structure? And a 4-inch line is not possible in a 6-inch inner diameter pipe. You just don't have enough space, you just don't have enough annular space to grout effectively in a centralized manner. And so what we've decided is we're still doing a little bit of investigation on it, but we think we have a plan whether we're gonna do stainless steel the whole way or do partial HDPE with stainless steel closer to module A. But the idea is it'll be a 3-inch line, but it'll be centralized entirely and it'll be grouted in a way that will support any weight the landfill will put on top of it.
And how long will that stainless steel piece extend past the end of the current pipe?
As far as we can, the idea of the stem is going to be the perforated section is proposed to be 2 feet. The idea is any press into the column will, one, reestablish some sort of flow beyond the apparent Fernco, but it'll also be perforated so that no matter where leachate sits on liner, it'll pass through that line.
And what's your timeline for that?
It was based on the minor mod approval. We have to use the existing Module 1 geosynthetics to be able to put leachate in, to be able to discharge it. Otherwise, we had no way to store leachate and drive it to the tanks or the POTW until we were able to construct the intercell berm. The Module 1 on the southern portion of it, there's a berm that's meant to be constructed that'll give it some holding capacity. Now that we have the minor mod approved, we can subsequently construct it, and then we can send leachate there while we remove the existing temporary lines in the geologic buffer and slip line that Module A line.
Okay. I know Chris, please.
Sorry, before you go on, I just have a couple clarifications for notes. You're removing something. Back up a second, you said we're removing the,
Oh, so my initial statement was the 4-inch line that was conceptually proposed in the permit application. The annular space that'd be available from a 4-inch outer diameter HDPE to a 6-inch inner diameter is about 0.6 of an inch total. You need at least a 1/2-inch tremie pipe to be able to drive grout or some sort of annular fill, and to be able to centralize it, that's just not possible. You're at best getting 0.3 of an inch, not including the tremie pipe that needs to be injected in there as well. So reducing it to 3 gives us the annular space where we can centralize the actual pipe within the existing structure, which gives it more rigidity, robustness to maintain the weight column that'll be placed on top of it.
so the 6-inch line will be slip lined with 3-inch, not 4.
Correct.
Okay, and there's also a pipe in there that is not going to stay and it's going to be removed.
Yeah, the tremie pipe. So basically we're going to inject a plug up into Module A, just below the actual liner itself. And that'll seal it so whatever grout we inject in there does not go into the waste column. And so to do that, we want to start at that point and work our way back. So the tremie pipe will just be a way to ensure that we can grout from that plug all the way to where it daylights in the new cell construction.
What has TDEC said about whether that requires a change to
The wording
existing
in the
documentation?
permit, the designs were conceptual, so it wasn't actually a permit spec. It just has to be included in our leachate management plan with the final design.
So you're not just solving the problem we've been talking about with regard to the disconnect. That's the one that has the perforated line that's going to be pushed up and past,
Hopefully 2 feet past.
hopefully at least 2 feet past. And then you're also solving this other issue that you've identified, which is you can't keep a 4-inch pipe. It's got to go down to a 3 on the slip line.
Correct.
Those 2 issues.
Yes.
And then remove it. Is the tremie pipe that you're removing, is that the one that TDEC has said this is temporary, it's got to go, when are you moving it? Can't leave it in there?
I believe so. I'm not familiar with that conversation, but I know the tremie pipe in itself is this, you pull it out as you inject grout into the line just so you can grout from the destination point all the way to where you begin the project.
Okay. There was some line that TDEC had said you can't leave that in there, and had not heard back when it was being removed. Came up in something, I didn't know the answer.
There was temporary leachate lines within the geologic buffer that would have required a mod. Instead of us utilizing those lines, we were just gonna pull them out and abandon them because we have a better system that we're installing with the gravities to the risers.
All right, you might want to just address that and make sure that if TDEC is saying that any leachate lines cannot be left in there, you have to either pull them out and abandon. You can't leave them in there and bury them, is what they were saying.
I think it's the latter. So the lines that are existing in the geologic buffer right now, that was from the existing tanks, the green tank structures, those are getting pulled. We're not using them, so they were,
Okay.
yes. Clarify on one thing, you said push the stem 2 feet in. One of the things we don't want to have happen is allow a piece of solid riser to go above the liner, because if that's the case, we would be potentially allowing there to be at least some leachate on liner. So the idea is at least to allow perforations at what we would call 0 inches or just the base of the liner. That way everything will pass through. There'll be no leachate on liner at any point.
All right.
And Chris has looked at that and is comfortable with that approach.
What he looked at is the extension on the steel.
Right.
I don't think he passed any judgment on the rest of the issue, which was going from a 6 to a 3.
4 to 3.
I'm sorry, a 4 to a 3, did he?
No. That's
He would have known that the portion in the PVC section would have been 3 in those plans. I know him and I spoke about it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, and, all right. And what format does that get put into? At what point does that enter a written phase and does,
You know, as final designs, when we update our leachate plan with the completion of the cell, and we get certification.
approximately when?
Hopefully by the end of July, I'm being a little bit, I guess, not trying to be urgent on time there, just because of some of the hiccups we faced with rain and everything, but I mean, I want it as soon as possible. We want to get these cells certified as quickly as we can, but we obviously need to do geosynthetics installs for module 2. We still have to do the work to abandon the lines. Let's just say end of July.
Okay.
If that's fair.
Are you gonna submit those plans to the commission before they go to TDEC or before you do
Like
it?
the CQA report and everything before the cell gets certified? Absolutely.
Saw some emails about the leachate storage tank updates. Will you just update commission on what happened, what was found, what's going on, what testing's been done?
Is that to me?
Yes, sir, please.
On April 29th, there was a sump pump inside the secondary containment failed. There was too much liquids within the secondary containment, causing the tank to have a partial uplift to floating. The south side actually sheared the bolt, so there was a little bit of a tilt. That was the initial notification to TDEC. We subsequently cleaned up. We had vac trucks on site when that happened. We subsequently cleaned the area. We dug out about 2 to 3 inches, depending on where. We verified it with a clean soil sample. We got the initial results back about 2 weeks after, but we ran it for leachability to determine if it matched our groundwater parameters, which it did. That was what I submitted earlier this week.
Let's talk a little bit about the new borrow pit area. Ms. Murphy, I know you submitted plans. They submitted some stuff to us, but that wasn't really even a drilling sample or drilling,
So the contract talked about, the contract language was specific to a grading plan and an erosion control plan that had to be submitted to the commission. But what we discovered last fall was that before, in order to deal with the closure, post-closure, and the soil issue, we all had, and the cost, everyone had, in the past, I guess, skipped over how much soil was actually available and therefore how much would need to be bought, et cetera. So TDEC wanted that bond. Republic agreed to it, subject to getting a soil assessment of how much soil you actually had out there. And I don't think we've seen a soil assessment plan.
And what Chris is wanting is a bore log to try to evaluate and see how much soil is available.
You would use boring,
Yeah.
correct, you're nodding, do we get that right? Okay, so I think that's where everyone's stuck right now is before, we're out of order. Like the first thing is an assessment of the soils before you start doing the grading and employ or submit an erosion plan. So after looking over the contract and considering the things that happened in the last year that were not part of the written contract, there was sort of an assumption that was skipped over. The question is, can we expect, or do you have a soil borrow assessment plan?
As far as, do we have a plan on where borings will be conducted? Or
How are you gonna assess how many cubic yards of soil you have out there?
So we have a contractor that's going to access the site. Accessibility's been our primary limiting factor, whether it's due to rain or accessibility with jurisdictional determinations, those type of features, because those do affect buffers and how close we can get to some of these existing permanent now features that appear to be more seasonal on site, which is the reason for the jurisdictional determination request. But once those soils are classified based upon the location of our grading plan, so that grading plan kind of specifies where the most soil can be, I guess, accessed. You know, so you have that grading plan that I provided you previously that estimated about 1 million yards of soil. Once we have that grading plan, if that's approved, there's a couple more questions I have on that matter anyways. But we'll go in there and we'll take a few, we'll do some, what we call boreholes. Really, they're just gonna do an excavator and do soil classification to give us a little bit more, I guess, sample of what a specific area is. Otherwise, we'd be getting a 4-inch hole as something that's representative of potentially 100 feet.
What page is the million cubic yard assessment on?
The plan I provided was it was just a proposed plan. It would have been right on the design. It would have said specifically estimated
How did you calculate 1 million cubic yards?
based upon the grading from the topography that currently exists there versus what the final grading will be.
Where is that assessment? The
Well,
map?
you have,
Where's the
and
map on
that's
it?
what the soil classification comes into play, because you have the existing topography that's currently there right now, undisturbed. When they go to dig, how much of that is rock versus soil, that's where the soil classification will come into play. So based upon what we understand right now for the site, which there are some general assumptions on how much rock is available based upon what's been encountered at the site currently, but based upon that, there is the assumption that there is about 1 million cubic yards, approximately 1 million cubic yards available in soil.
Are you just using old topo maps? Or do you have, you're just saying it's what you've dug out, how deep did you hit clay or chert or whatever, I'm still a little bit lost in the.
So what you have is a conceptual design plan. So you
Right.
have, let's call it a hill, 100 feet high. If we take 100 foot of hill and drop it to 0, how much soil is that quantified as?
And are you
So-
assuming there's no rock in there?
That is part of the assumption, yes.
Okay, I think that's the problem.
But it's also based upon what's been experienced at the site historically.
Okay.
Like how many I guess what I'm just ignorant, but like how many boreholes, and where you're gonna do the boring, and that's where I would think you'd be able to get the most accurate and widespread determination of soil available. It's like,
Absolutely, it's accessibility. You know, one of the things that's a somewhat limiting factor is I want to do a full property delineation survey to know exactly where the property boundaries exist on today's assessor map. So accessing that area, which you've pretty much given us the green light to do, weather's been the only inhibiting factor of making sure we do this, because that will affect how far we can go for buffers, because there's residences along, I think it's Matlock Bend Drive, maybe?
yeah, I just don't see the need for that massive 12-acre sediment basin when we're simply just trying to drill some holes throughout that entire
that's-
parcel.
That's where I think the confusion is. Isn't that supposed to be part of your erosion plan?
So the said
Assuming
basin,
that you're already grading it out, assuming that you already have the soil.
said basin soils.
Huh?
The said basin is our soils. I mean, that is where the soils are, we have to dig our said basin.
Okay, I think what we need is something a little bit more clear. We have to deal with this bond issue that's coming up. That document does not get us there. We can't assume there's 1 million cubic yards. That's exactly the conversation we had before the expansion was approved. And TDEC said, we need to know how much you've got. And Mr. Klassen agreed it was an assumption. And therefore agreed to bond up to, I don't know, what was the number? How many million?
2 or 3 is up there.
It was $2 or $3 million worth of soil because nobody knew. So we want to move from assumption to knowledge, because that drives the rest of the conversation about how much soil do you have, how much soil do you have to expect to buy. That unknown number is kind of messing up the calculation. And
Yeah.
so that bond was agreed upon, and now we're coming down to the wire on the next one, the next financial assurance paperwork deadline.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on the mayor to certify it so we can execute the bond.
I'll follow his office again.
I don't know, I'm a little confused. Where is the bond we agreed to last year? Did I miss
The
something?
soil one has not been done.
Yeah.
So this,
Where is
so
that?
there's TDEC issues a financial assurance mechanism. Basically, it takes into account for inflationary adjustments and what it's gonna require for closure, post-closure. And so right now, the assumption on these soils is that they would be hauled from off-site, which we're not out of the woodwork there yet either, because it's technically not on the same parcel as what the landfill exists. So that's an entirely different, I'm dealing with this in Churchill, Tennessee right now with the Republic-owned site. So this specifically, we're going to execute the bond regardless. The issue here is that right now, that number is quantified based upon hauling in off-site soil. So the cost is, I guess, embedded into the amount that we would have to purchase off-site soils.
Yes, we want to know that number.
I wanna know that number.
Well, that's where
So
TDEC talked about going out and doing all the boring throughout the entire piece of borrow area.
So I've been feeding bits of information to you guys for the last couple months on kind of what we need to do to get the most out of this borrow area. A lot of it is jurisdictional determination, because that's gonna affect buffers and how we grade from these stream features.
But I think before we get there, we need to do some boring to see what is out there.
That's, the streams are in just one little alleyway of this whole
So
massive
I mean-
section.
But we can't go close to those streams if we can't access those soils. So while I can go dig a hole in the middle of the property and say, there we go, but there's limitations on how far we can access. Yes, I agree with you, we can go dig a hole, yes. But what is the extent of what we're classifying is the issue here. And that's what I've been trying to kind of get past, and I didn't realize it was, at a point where we wanted to know numbers right here, right now, because that wasn't gonna happen in 2025 based upon when TDEC issued their financial assurance mechanism.
Well, normally, I don't think that ever is an issue, but it got to be an issue last year because TDEC flagged it, and they said, you have two choices here. You either take all that I think it was take the parcel, leave the parcels in and we permit all the parcels, or someone has to vouch for the soil. And we went back and forth about it. And Mr. Klassen's final position was, yeah, we don't know what all the soils, we don't know how much soil is out there, we'll bond it. And we said it, there was a cubic yard amount that was set by a TDEC engineer that tracked to the dollar amount, and that is the dollar amount that Mr. Klassen said, we will bond that. TDEC said they had to have that bond before they would issue the expansion permit, and they issued it without the bond.
I believe it.
Well, that's not the commission's problem.
No, and
It is now, but we need a soil borrow assessment plan, like how much soil is out there based on some boreholes. And when this agreement, or this grading plan was sent to Mr. Klein, didn't you ask him the question of, is this a soil borrow assessment plan? And he's like,
Mr. Klein said this is, at best, an erosion prevention plan to indicate areas excavated planned for the borrow area.
so
A
sort
soil
of-
assessment should include information generally found in a geotechnological investigation to accurately project usable soil. We'll need a bore log to identify how much soil is available along with the types of soil available.
so that's what we're waiting on. And the streams are not in the way of, how many acres is in the total?
I don't know how.
Do you remember how many acres we're dealing with on those two parcels?
I don't know what the
It's
actual.
pretty big.
Yeah, no, it is big, but there's, we have the Purdy property where the sheriff sees those houses, so that's a limiting factor in how much we can access. There's the stream that cuts through to Matlock Drive, there's a stream that cuts through the Eastman property that runs through, and so I'm not saying that those eliminate our ability to do that. I'm telling you, we are working on it, but what I'm also saying right now is in TDEC's financial assurance mechanism, the bond you are referring to is embedded into that number. It has to be. TDEC has to have it that way. Because if Republic were to default or the county were to default, they have to have a bond that guarantees that they can purchase the soils to close the landfill.
I know, but it's gonna fall on somebody. The goal is for it not to be the responsibility of the commission.
So what we'll experience next year is 26, there will be a reduction based upon soils available that are owned by the commission.
Reduction of what?
The bond amount, the financial assurance mechanism.
There is no bond.
There is a bond as soon as the mayor, we have a surety bond based upon the financial assurance mechanism.
We have not seen that. Is that what you got?
So the bond that we got, the most recent bond we have, does that have the soil amount in it already?
The information that I sent to you that needs to be certified by the mayor has all that information in it.
And it includes the bond that Republic bought and paid for those soils.
We carry a bond every year, no matter what. Every
That's
year
for,
we have
that's
a
for the
financial.
closure and the $1 million to operate it for a year.
We're talking about a different bond.
He says.
I
this
need
in-
you to provide me information of what you're talking,
You need to call Mr. Klassen. He made the deal.
Well, from my understanding is, once the mayor signs that surety paperwork, it triggers and the number is already in there that TDEC has requested, as soon as the mayor signs it.
But that's not, does that,
I need
We
to see
still don't
this.
know-
I mean, this
we
is
still don't know
all a
anything about
mess.
the borrow pit. I mean, is that included or is it?
It is included.
And so it's been in the past, what, how much was it? It was for 13 million?
It goes up all the time.
I know,
Hold on.
but so it would, if it, I don't know how much it goes up, but it would go up what it does incrementally every year plus, right?
So the driver this time was the expansion permit that was approved in January. And so now all of a sudden, closure, post-closure became not 44.5 acres, the existing hill, it expanded to a much larger footprint, which is the driver of, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was like a $12 million increase, which was based upon not only soils, but maintaining, gas, methane migration, maintaining groundwater, ensuring vegetation and cap maintenance, erosion and stormwater controls, and the soils needed to cap. So that bond that TDEC issued, the amount, that includes it. I can't speak to what Clausen said. I mean, I can phone him, absolutely, if there was something that he promised as far as a separate bond to what that is.
Yeah,
I can't speak to
yes,
that.
that's what we're talking about. It was a
It's
completely,
separate. It was a.
yeah, I'm trying to explain this.
But I think it's been, I can't find the email with the bond. I called the mayor about his office after we met last, but I don't have anything from you regarding that bond. My understanding is, it's just one giant amount. It's one bond that covers three things: operating the landfill for a year, if they walked away, the closure cost, and then now it includes the approximate $2-3 million, whatever that soil amount is.
Okay.
So once Buddy signs what's been sent to him from TDEC or Republic,
We will hold the bond for as long as we operate.